So here we have the boot up screen. As we scroll over to the email and the password sections are just work in progress. But the idea is to make sure that we get the full flow of the game design. We saw the meticulous direction that we put in for the UI look and the feel of it, and that really helps to accelerate this process when we just basically take components from Photoshop and drop it in here, whether it's the login and register buttons, the play as guest buttons, and we put a little prototype stamp on this build so that way people knew that this is early days of the project, but looking really good. So now before battle, we're going to select Clementine here and ready to rock. Let's go play. Here we see the 3-on-3 that we anticipate. My team is on the left. Here's the intro camera of them coming in. And the blue area signifies where I can move to position myself pre-battle. And then we get the 10-second countdown, full 3D environment. And as the battle begins, we're going to hand it over to Camilo to talk about all the things we're seeing.
So this is the real meat of the games. This is what we all be waiting for. So as you can see, we have our 3-on-3 fight, and we have a lot of information about the surrounding things. First off, you can see on top of each of the characters, you can see their current HP and their energy levels. And you can see that Clementine, the character that we are playing, has a green to them differentiator in the case that the enemy is also playing with Clementine, right? And whenever a character uses an ability, an effect, or something like that, it will pop up on top of them. Just as well as effects that you can see on top of each of the characters, you can see a small icon that indicates that, okay, they have a special effect or something going on there, right? Jumping into the interface, we have on the lower left of the screen, we have Clementine, all her abilities from the kit that we selected in the screen before. We have her passive, we have her life points before and below with the just green bar, and we have that purple bar in top, that's the energy. That's the one that we use for cards and to level up her abilities as she fights during the battle. Then on the right, we have our card selections from the deck that we made previously. As you can see, each one of them has like a small icon on the top left that says a number. That's the amount of energy. So you will have to balance both energy for your cards and energy for your abilities, right? You also have a small shuffle icon that you can shuffle some of the cards later. It's some part of work in progress that we're working. So you can have, if no cards are good on your hand, you can just switch it out and hope to have a better card in the next that you get. Then if we jump into the top part of the screen, we have the battle timeline. So in the timeline, you can see, since each ability doesn't resolve immediately, you can see how each ability is coming forward, and you can prepare properly on each effect, card, or anything that the enemy is throwing at you. That way you can say, okay, if an enemy is throwing a disable, something that's going to mute me, I'm going to prepare myself with the specific ability or card that I can counter that.
And one thing I'll add is that the red outline indicates the enemies and the blue is my team on the queue.
Absolutely.
And we're starting to see the alignment spheres coming in too. That's cool.
Absolutely. So this is a work in progress, just a small snippet for you guys to see. This is something that will keep the battlefield just going on more than just smacking each other around and using your abilities. You also have these alignment spheres that will appear, and you can pick them up to get a small perk or a bonus for your character that's temporary. And the thing is, you have to also know about the lore of the character a bit, since these alignment spheres will depend on the character that you're using. So you cannot go just all willy picking anything that you want on spheres. And at the same time, we're also seeing another one of the battlefield hazards that we call here in the game, and that's the totem. So as you can see, we have a totem with a blue health bar. That means that health bar is on our side. And on the right side of the screen, we have a red one. Why is that? That one is from the enemy team. The point here is that we want to create flow between the battles and make it more dynamic. So you have more than just attacking your enemy. You also have more outcomes to change how the battle is going, and you can come back some scenarios that might seem like a losable battle, but you can win via this. So for example, here with the totems, we have a scenario that you must defeat the enemy totem, and if you defeat the enemy totem, you will get a huge buff for your entire team, but at the same time, you have to protect yours. For now, this is also just purely work in progress and something that we are still polishing and keeping it up just for the first version of the game. But I wanted to have it here as something to experience and get the grip on how it feels in the game. Now, For something really cool, we want to just have a quick look at how the abilities look on Clementine, right? So we have here a small debug abilities menu that we can use to check on the abilities that Clementine has. Just some heads up, say we already show you some of the animations and VFX that we have been working on Clementine right now. And says the code hasn't been completed since this is still a work of progress. So you can sometimes see characters being hit and they are not reacting properly, but this is due to it still being on progress. So you can see, like, for example, if we go from before, you go ability 2, tactical position, or and you can see the VFX and the animations of Clementine already going off. And you can see again with some of the other abilities. For example, if we go to ability 6, for example, we have pellet burst. You can also see she taking the position, shooting, and going at it. And again, some of the characters don't react due to code, but this is part of the process of building the character completely, just starting from the basics of the animation, going on with everything on the game design, and then finishing and tidying it up with the code and being sure that it works very, very good.
Yeah, so you guys are looking at under the hood of how we make these games. And the abilities buttons are just simply for us to just check everything visually, because as Camilo mentioned, we don't have quite the programming support in, so they don't function fully. But that's the building blocks to get us to a robust vertical slice. And from there, we go into production by having all the other characters have their abilities line up, their icons, their actual visual effects, the timing, the damage radius, how they impact everybody else. And that's why these games can't just make themselves. They take quite a while to be completed. So the vertical slice milestone was a big one for us to show proof of concept of at least one character. But in this case, we had up to 3 characters partially functional. They're not fully functional yet, but we can see the core loop here. We can see that there's a lot going on, and there's, as Camilo mentioned, there's a lot of depth that the player has to absorb and understand what's going on. But we thought that the kind of game like this would allow us to have that kind of strategy and really understanding the depth of gameplay that you can get into. So as these guys battle it out, that's where we are so far. Pretty excited about what we're seeing on screen. There's a lot that has gone into this, and from the meticulous design of the environments, which we're going to have multiple of. They're all, the art direction for the environments are to be part of her neighborhood. This is her kind of cul-de-sac. You can see that in another lifetime she was playing hopscotch, and now she's using that awesome weapon of hers to to fight the other classes. And we plan to have other environments that are similar, which would be like something from her school or something from the neighborhood, those kind of settings. And that all takes concept art. We have to block it out. We have to make sure there's no obstructions on the camera, and just rinse and repeat with each of the characters and their abilities and visual effects. So once we reach the vertical slice milestone, we know what the kind of game we're building. We just have to put a lot more art resources in and start tuning and balancing, so we have a very balanced and fun game to play. So one character isn't over balanced or overpowered, one character being underpowered. It's a rock, paper, scissors scenario. So we want to make sure that they're all have their weaknesses and strengths and work well. So once we get past the production, then we get into the alpha phase, which is about getting content completion, and then a feature completion, and then to start doing more testing and QA to make sure that all the characters are properly balanced. So a lot going on. And with that, a good transition here, seeing the results screen. A lot of this data is temporary, but it will be factored in with the amount of XP you gathered, your ink, and all the different those that we accomplished here. And then we go into the next battle.